Hello, grade nines. This is a lesson on rational numbers in fraction form. The previous lesson was rational numbers in decimal form. I recommend that you watch some of the grade 8 videos on the following: improper fractions and mixed numbers, the adding fractions, subtracting fractions, multiplying fractions, dividing. Once you've got that mastered, then this stuff is really simple, okay? So here we are, just like decimals, rational numbers in decimal form. We are adding, always make sure you are adding a negative fraction to another negative fraction. So these two fractions are both negative, so that means that they're both friends. When fractions are friends, that means that the fractions are added together, and the answer stays negative. Okay, so I know this answer will be negative. So now what I do is I find a common denominator because we have a 3 and a 5. So you ask yourself, what number do they both go into? They both go into 15. So I change them both to 15. And we ask how many 3's go into 15. So 3 goes into 15 5 times. So 3 times 5 is 15. So that means we have to take 2 times 5 is 10. So now, but before we do that, I like to tell students this negative that's here, it can actually attach to the 2. So it's actually negative 2. We can move that negative here or to this number or leave it outside. So I always try to attach the negative to the top number. So this is actually, think of it as negative 2. So it's negative 2 times 5. So that's negative 10. And I'm going to write it like that, negative 10. Now here we have asked how many 5's go into 15. So it's 5 times 3. So that means negative 4, remember this is negative 4 times 3, this is negative 12. So I'm going to add the two together, and how you add fractions again is we keep the same bottom number, and now we add the two tops. So negative 10 added to a negative 12, that gives us a negative 22. Over 15, now this is improper, which means I have to ask how many times does 15 go into 22? The answer is 1. And what's the leftover out of 15? Same bottom number. The leftover is 7. And that negative, don't forget that it'll go attach itself to that negative 1, to the 1. So it's negative 1 and 7/15. All right. This one over here, so we are, it's a positive 3. And we're adding to it a negative 3/4. So I know that if we have a positive added to a negative, these numbers are not friends, they're enemies. And so they will be subtracted. The number that wins this subtraction is this number because it's more, we'll have to see. It might be more negative than this one. So we'll have to see. We can't really tell because right now the bottom numbers are different. So we see that we have to find a common denominator. So what number do they both go into? Well, they both go into 16, but actually the lowest common is 8. They both go into 8. This one's already an 8, so we leave it. We change this one to an 8. So 4 becomes an 8. How many times does 4 go into 8? Twice, so it's 4 times 2. So 3 times 2 is 6, and that's a negative 3, so it's negative 6. So this one's already a 3 eighths. So we add 3 eighths to a negative 6 eighths. So I keep the 8 on the bottom, and now I simply just add 3 and the negative 6, so I can see this negative 6 is going to win. So we have negative 3 over 8, final answer. So the answer is more negative than it is positive. Here we have a subtraction. So if you remember with the decimals, what you do is you change that to addition. So we make this a positive. And then we make this a negative. So we add the opposite of this. So the opposite of this is negative 7/8. I'll put that negative, though, with the 7. So I'm just going to cross that out. So really we'd have, instead of take away 7/8, we have add the negative 7/8. So we have a negative added to a negative. So a negative and a negative, these numbers again are friends. So that means we add these fractions. So we have a 6 and an 8. Two bottom numbers that are different, so we find the common denominator. They both go into 24. So we make them both 24, and we ask how many 6's go into 24. That's 4, so it's 6 times 4 is 24, so 5 times 4 is 20. And that's a negative 20. I like to put that negative right with the numerator. 8, how many 8s go into 24? It's 3, so it's 8 times 3. So negative 7 times 3 is negative 21. Now I can add the 2. So I keep the same 24, and now I add negative 20 added to a negative 21. So that's negative 41, which is an improper fraction. So now we ask ourselves, how many times does 24 go into 41? Only once, and there's a lot of remainder. Out of 24, there's a remainder of 17. Since it's a negative, right, so put that negative in front. So we have negative 1 and 17 over 24. Okay, and that's how you would do that. Next one. Let's do one more here of the subtraction type. So we have, again, a taking away, negative, take away a negative. So I don't like to see a negative. I want to make sure that's an add. So I'll make that an add, and I'll make this the opposite. So basically making that a positive. So now we have a negative fraction, so a negative, added to a positive. So these numbers are enemies. So we are going to not add them, we're going to subtract them. So first of all, though, I have a 2 and a 3 on the bottom. I have to find a common denominator. What number do they both go into? They both go into 6. So I'll make that a 6, make that a 6. Okay, so 2 goes into 6 how many times? 3. So 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3, but that's a negative 3 because that's a negative 1. So negative 3 over 6. This here, how many 3's go into 6? It's 2, so 3 times 2 is 6, so 2 times 2 is 4, but that's a positive. So now we add the 2 together. We keep the same bottom number, which is a 6. Now we add the two top numbers, negative 3 added to 4, and that's a 1, positive 1. So the answer is positive 1/6 or 1/6. Okay. Now we go into multiplying. So multiplying, remember what we do is we look for bikini numbers. We ask what number do... look for a top and a bottom number, just like a bikini has a top and a bottom. We look for a top and a bottom number that are divisible by some number. So, for example, when I look at the 3 here and the 6, I know that that's a top and that's a bottom number. They are both divisible by 3. They can divide by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 5 and 10 are both divisible by 5, so it's a negative 5, right? So negative 5 divide 5, that's a negative 1, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. Now, you can only cancel a top and a bottom, so I can't cancel those two 2's because they're both on the bottom, so we're basically done. So we go 1 times negative 1, that's negative 1, and 2 times 2 is 4. So we multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, negative 1 over 4. Okay, that's how you do that. When you have a mixed number times a mixed number, we have to change them both to improper fractions. So how you do that is you go 3 times 1, add 2. 3 times 1 is 3, add 2 is 5. So it's 5 over 3. I'm going to recopy the question. That negative stays with, I like to put it with the numerator, times 2 times 4, add 1. That's what you do. That's 9 over 2. And that negative goes with the 9, negative 9 now. So now we look at that and we look for bikini numbers. So looking for a top and a bottom number that I can divide by something. And I notice that the 3 and the 9, negative 9, they're both divisible by 3. So 3 divide 3, cancel out, put a 1. Negative 9 divide 3, cancel it out, put negative 3. Now you can never cancel a 1. 2 and 3, no. 2 and 5, no. So there's no more bikini numbers. So now we just simply write the answer, which works out to be, multiplying the top, negative 5, negative 3, that's 15 positive over 1 times 2 is 2. And that is improper. So you ask how many 2's go into 15. There are 7, that's your whole number. Keep the same 2. The remainder, 7 goes into 15 twice, that's 14, remainder 1. So it's 7.5. And the answer is positive. And the last two examples here. So we have division. So when you're dividing, if you remember from the grade 8s, you keep the first fraction, but you have to flip this one and multiply. So in other words, I'm going to have negative 4 over 5, keep that one, reverse these two numbers, and change the divide to multiply. So in fact, we don't even divide. So as you can see now, we look for bikini numbers. 4 and 16 and 5, 15. In fact, you know what? In this case, there are no bikini numbers because a top and a bottom, I can't find anything that's divisible by the 2. I can't find 2 numbers, top and bottom, that are divisible by some number. So I'm basically done. So I multiply the top 2 numbers, -4 and 16. That's -64. And 5 times 15 is 75. And that is it. Final answer. Okay, now here we have a negative mixed number with a negative mixed number. Just like multiplying up here, we have to change them both to improper. So I'm going to go 8 times 1 adds 7, so that's 15 over 8. Put that negative right up here. Just going to recopy this question though. So I don't do any flipping just yet. So now I go 2 times 2 add 1 is 5 over 2. Put that negative with the -5 like that. So now we have a division. Now I use the rule, which is keep the first, flip the second. So I'm going to just read it right over here. So I'm going to have keep the first one and flip the second one. I always like to put that negative back up on top. So even though I know I flip it, it could be -5, I'm going to put it back up here. It doesn't really matter where you put it, but that's where I like to put it, always with the numerator. So now we look for 2 numbers, top and a bottom, bikini numbers, that I can divide by something. And I notice these 2. They're both divisible by 5. 5 divide 5 is 1. 15 divide 5 is -3 because it's a -15. Now 2 and -8. 2 goes into this and this. 2 goes into -2. That's -1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So now we are done. So now I basically multiply the top, -3 times -1, the answer is 3. 4 times 1 is 4. The answer is 3/4. So grade 9s, that is all the operations with rational numbers in fraction form. I sure hope that helps you. If you still had trouble, go back to the grade 8 lesson. That'll sure help you out more.